year is 1991. The Cold War is over. The world takes a collective breath. Decades of division, hostile ideologies, covert operations, and the ever-present threat of nuclear war finally give way to something new: hope. For the first time in living memory, peace seemed not just possible but inevitable. Leaders sat across from one another, signing agreements that promised a better future. Former adversaries exchanged handshakes, and people celebrated as regimes crumbled and barriers of distrust and hostility began to fade. Western thinkers declared it the dawn of a new era. The world, they believed, would change forever. Except it didn't.
Russia has attacked Ukraine and its people, upending security and stability.
Fast forward to November 2024. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has ignited a conflict that has been dragging on for over 2 years. With no clear end in sight, the war continues to escalate. Ukraine, supported by Western help, has managed to push back in some regions, while Russia has dug in, using ever more advanced weapons to maintain control. So, how did it come to this? How did we go from hopeful promises of peace to the very real threat of global conflict? Why would Vladimir Putin risk it all? The answers are far from simple. To understand Russia's seemingly irrational aggression, we must step back and view things from their perspective. And the key to that understanding lies in geography. For Russia, geography has always been its biggest challenge. Sure, it's massive, but that size is also its weakness. Most of the country is wide open, with no natural barriers to keep enemies out. If you look at this map of Russia, you will notice something interesting. Even though Russia is absolutely massive, most people live in the western part around Moscow. This region, despite being the core of Russia's power, is also the most exposed. And that weakness, it has shaped the strategic decisions of Russian leaders for generations. Despite its massive size, Russia's core is largely indefensible. Looking at Russia's core area, the region historically known as the Grand Principality of Muscovy reveals a stark reality. This heartland, where 80% of Russians live today, lacks natural defensive features. Not a single significant mountain range, major river system, or other geographical barrier stands between Moscow and potential invaders from the west. This vulnerability has driven centuries of Russian expansions, as leaders sought to create artificial depths where nature provided none. Of particular concern is the European plain. This vast flatland serves as a natural invasion corridor, stretching from France to the Ural Mountains. Its narrowest point through Poland acts like a funnel. As the European plain approaches Russia's borders, it widens into a colossal 2,000-kilometer stretch. An endless horizon of open terrain that no military, however powerful, could successfully defend. But Russia faces another critical challenge that sets it apart from other global powers. Despite possessing one of the world's longest coastlines, it remains functionally landlocked for much of the year. In the north, ports along the Arctic Circle freeze for months. Even when these waters are open, Russian ships must navigate narrow straits controlled by NATO nations. The Skagerrak between Denmark and Norway, the English Channel, and the strategically crucial GI-UK gap leading from the Arctic Sea into the North Atlantic. The Black Sea has its own set of challenges. While ports like Sevastopol and Novorossiysk offer better year-round access, they are constrained by the Turkish-controlled Bosporus Strait. East of Ukraine's border, the European plain stretches uninterrupted for 750 kilometers to the Caspian Sea. This stretch, known as the Volgograd Gap, is critical to Russia's survival. If a hostile force were to seize this gap, it would isolate Russia from the Caucasus, the Black Sea, and the Caspian Sea. A NATO-aligned Ukraine would likely to seek to exploit this strategic vulnerability. Beyond bringing hostile forces closer to Moscow, it would give NATO potential control over critical maritime choke points. From bases in Ukraine, NATO forces could theoretically threaten Russia's access to the Black Sea, and by extension, its ability to project power beyond its immediate borders. The situation in Ukraine must be understood through this lens. For Russia, Ukraine isn't just about land. It's about securing critical maritime access. There are Russian military strategists that advocate for an even more radical approach. Should Ukraine join NATO, Russia would confront an existential challenge: defending an exposed 2,000-kilometer border against the world's most powerful military alliance, a situation that is both expensive and difficult to sustain. Reducing this exposure along the European plain is crucial for Russia, whose geopolitics demand anchoring its position along the Baltic Sea and the Carpathian Mountains. Securing these footholds on the plain's northern and southern edge helps protect Moscow and reduce military spending. Seizing control of the Baltics would enable Russia to link the Kaliningrad region directly to the Russian mainland, bypassing the need to navigate through or around NATO territory. It would also enhance Russia's influence and control over the entire Baltic Sea, solidifying its strategic position in the region. The Carpathians offer Russia a crucial buffer, providing tactical advantage in an otherwise flat landscape. Although not impossible to cross, the mountain range acts as a barrier, slowing down invading armies. This geographic advantage is key to Russia's rationale for invading Ukraine. This means that Russia's goal in Ukraine is to capture the entire country. From Russia's perspective, it must advance all the way to the Carpathian Mountains. Achieving this requires control over all of Ukraine and Moldova. By taking both, Russia would effectively restore part of the Soviet Union's former borders, reducing its exposed flank along the European plain from 2,000 kilometers to just 600, a significant decrease. While the ultimate aim may be to push further west, potentially seizing Poland and the Baltics, Russia is taking it one step at a time. Ukraine is fighting for its survival, and if Russia succeeds, Poland and the Baltics will likely be next. When you look at a map of Russia today, you're not just seeing borders, you're seeing the scars of invasion after invasion and the results of leaders trying desperately to prevent the next one. It's a geographical prison that Russia seems unable to escape, where the solutions of the past may no longer address the challenges of the future. Ukraine remains Russia's top security priority. As long as it shares a border with Russia, the Kremlin will keep a close eye on it. However, the scope of this conflict extends beyond Ukraine itself. Despite the intense battles on the ground, the war is deeply rooted in Russia's broader geopolitical ambitions. It symbolizes Moscow's larger strategy to restore a multipolar global order, an attempt to reclaim the influence it believes was lost through the course of history.